Sounds straight.
Welcome to South End supporters of St. Louis City SC podcast. Erik Cole by himself tonight, running it solo as Dave, the double MCB, just had something coming up here just right before we were about to start recording. But hey, when City finally gets their first win of the season, the show has got to go on. So I'm going to do my best tonight to try and run this solo, kind of cover my night on the game, things I noticed, and then a little bit later on get into some South End submissions. But yeah, City finally getting the not only the goal scoring drought off their back, but as well the win kind of drought off their back as well, as they took down the New England Revolution Saturday night 3-1 in a just a good overall night, I would say. Started out just, I mean, as far as weather and everything goes, just a beautiful night. Couldn't have asked for better weather, but it just felt, I'm loving seeing City Park still feel alive as far as early on in the season. I know no matter where you look, there's always going to be those like kind of people quick to turn, doubt and all that type of stuff. But it still is nice going down there, feeling the atmosphere, especially like early on. When I got down there, I got down there a little bit before gates open, and just the sheer amount of people that was out in the plaza. It was really cool to see, just a lot of people, a lot of families, but just energy still high. And so that was just great. A great way to start the night. Obviously, big moments throughout the night, I would say. First off, starting out with the right before kickoff, just the moment of silence for Leuven's wife was really, really nice and amazing that they did something sort of like that. And then as well, we got, as we were walking in, we got these gray cards basically that had a black heart with IL in them. I think I'm correct on this, that the gray ribbon is the cancer color ribbon for brain cancer, which unfortunately she passed away with. And so it was a nice thing. And then at the 10th minute, it said, "Hold up your card." And that was, man, that was real, like, powerful. That it was, everybody, you started seeing around 9:30, people kind of getting their stuff situated and everything like that. And then once that 10 minute and everybody stood up and held that card, it went dead silent. And it was wild. It was real reminiscent of like the pandemic days, and when games were still going on in closed stadiums. You could hear it was wild. The ball was mainly kind of during that period of time more towards the north end or on the other half of the field from where I was at, but you could hear all the players on the field talking. You could hear like the different languages being spoken as well, like coming through. It was like a really powerful experience. Like I said, just not only the tribute that was put towards her, but just being able to really like almost hear every sound and kick of the ball, talking on the field. It was just a cool thing to see, and a great thing that I think City deserved. I would like personally for myself, something still to carry on. Like we mentioned, I think it was last week, where like Liverpool still does like a round of applause for a minute, just something to still acknowledge the Leuven, how his short time that he's already been with the club has been a bit impactful, and that we're still behind him throughout the year. So I thought that was a cool thing, kind of highlight for sure of the night, of the many. Another big, when you want to talk about noises, when they announced that starting 11, one big change that was coming into the starting 11, and I think a lot of the fans were kind of asking for this, Celio back in the starting lineup. And man, I don't know if I could tell you a bigger pop as far as just a starting 11 announcement than when they called Celio's name. I mean, that place went wild. You could tell that, whatever your feelings have been on the starting 11, or how you think, things have been going, who should be in, he's always been a fan favorite. And I think one of the things that makes him a fan favorite, not only just that constant smile, and you always hear great things about him, but he just brings that little bit of, when he gets the ball, he's going to try something. And he definitely did on the night. Every time he kind of got the ball in isolation, 1v1, he would try to make something happen. Now, do I think he had his best game? No, I don't. But do I think he brought something that brought an excitement, brought attention from the New England Revolution towards, him, which opened up other things later on in the game for sure. I think it also helped Wallem maybe feel a little bit more get into better positions as far as him. It was interesting watching that whole link up down the right hand of the field throughout that first half and seeing how, if Celio pushed in far, Wallem stayed out wide, and it seemed like they had a decent, hookup as far as like where they're going to go, and they're not both running into the same sort of space. So that was nice to see. It was good to see, just Celio bring that back in, as far as in the starting lineup, and just any sort of threat. I think that's what we always kind of want is just, other options as far as threat. And when there was, especially on the offensive end, lacking tremendously, and we were calling for some sort of change, it was good to see that, at least something was done. One thing I did notice on the other end of that throughout the first 10 minutes was Hartle was trying to find himself. He's on the opposite end of the field. He was almost trying to find like a free roll, roaming kind of throughout the final third or just in the offensive end. But what was ended up happening is there was a lot of times where for him to get on the ball, because it was obvious we were just trying to get the ball out to the wings as much as we could. And what I was noticing when there were times that he was finding himself not in the game, he would drift more to try and get himself involved. But then what would happen is if we would get stuck on one side, mainly Celio's side, and we would try and rotate the ball back around and shift it, there's nobody out there. There was only Santos. And then if they kind of cut him off, there was just no. So then we'd have to kind of keep cycling it back and just kind of trying to drive it down the same side. So it felt like for the first 10 minutes, it was a little stagnant. And to me, that might have been a factor in it. It was this constant trying, all right, didn't work here. Let's try and rotate it back out, which we've seen a lot throughout the season. But when they'd go to swing it quick to the other side, if Hartle wasn't over there, there's just nothing going on. So I felt like that went for about 10 minutes, and then that kind of, stopped. And like I said, at the 10-minute mark was when they had the Leuven thing, and that was almost ruined because right at the end of it, when, the fans are going to start kind of like, applauding and showing their appreciation for that minute, the Revolution get a real good chance right in front of goal. So it was kind of like a quick little like, whoa, all right, yes, now we can start cheering. And, it wasn't long after that when, unfortunately, New England took the lead. And it was kind of reminiscent of just a lot of things that we've experienced through the past. It looked like, Vollum kind of was a little late to react on the through ball in. It was a great ball through that released their winger. He was a little late to react, but then, nobody picking up a runner coming into the middle of the box. It's just, again, that kind of backdoor signs of ball watching a little bit. I think it was Polvara who got pulled into the near post chasing a runner. Baumgartner was already a little bit late coming back, so they were both kind of going towards the same area, which, again, you got to talk. You got to figure out, hey, we can't have two people running onto one guy in the same space, especially those two, because then that leaves such a big gap. And I wish like Baumgartner would maybe realize the situation, put his big body in the center of that box, and I think it would have been an easier clearance. Ball finds its way through. Santos is definitely like probably caught up in a little bit of ball watching. It was a good run, backdoor run, so it's not like something you can see. And I mean, from that angle, it shouldn't be a bury. And so right from there, you're kind of thinking, God, here we go again. You felt like this, even throughout the stadium, here we go again. City hasn't been very great when going down just in the past and finding their way back. And so it was really great to see, though, the team this time stay in it and kind of pick things up and go from there. And, not too much longer, we draw a corner. That was a big thing I noticed that Celio really brought to it with a lot of the driving and going towards the end line, which we've been clamoring for a lot this year, is sometimes, especially with a player like Celio with that dribbling skill, he could break free, get himself in, get a shot, open up for a different pass, top of the box, or that type of stuff. Or what we were seeing a lot on the night is he would drive, just try and put it across, get a deflection, and go out for a corner. And we've said this a lot on the show, and I'll continue to say it, especially as, we talk about corners on the night. It was great to just finally see what a hard-driven ball into a dangerous space can do, because that's what Santos did. He just put one in, dangerous spot, great ball in, with pace, though. It wasn't this floated thing. And I almost wish, like, Hartle would have took note from that, because on the night, I felt Hartle's crosses on corners were just too floated, or he just tries to get too precise with it sometimes. And even watching him, especially when he was taking him on the south end, it just doesn't look like there's that much behind it. which then when they're precise like that, what that requires is that whoever gets on the other end of it has to do a lot to get that on frame, but also get that on frame in a dangerous spot and beat the keeper. And what a ball like Santos's did, where it was driven him with pace into a dangerous area, is Durkin really just tried to get himself free and then just get anything on it. And that's what he does in that space. I know there was like a little bit of turning and miscommunication on the New England side, but he just gets himself into space and gets anything on it, and that ball goes in the back of the net. So it was great to see that sort of like, response. And then, boy, I mean, talk about a brave decision with the goal celebration as far as the like, I think City put it out as like a penguin dive or whatever, just the face first, arms behind the back. Because I know how many times I've seen like, Premier League players try and go a knee slide and hit a dry spot, and then they go flipping over. I can't imagine if you're sliding on your chest and you hit a dry spot and then you just scorpion over the top, how bad that would end up looking. So luckily for him, it worked out. And finally, we got to see City's new little goal celebration that they had on the night with a little bit of almost like a light show. You kind of got to see like the lights flicker kind of all throughout the stadium, and then almost like this little spotlight comes down and kind of just highlights the team celebrating in the corner. And honestly, I kind of liked it. I texted Dave, we got a new goal celebration and that type of stuff because he wasn't there on the night. And he said red out, like kind of like we've kind of been hoping, I guess they did all from the beginning. A buddy of ours in the group chat put it down as like if you ever watched the old school wrestling, Kane, when he would come out and the whole place would go red and flames and all that type of stuff. I think we were always thinking maybe something like that, similar to what Austin does with the green out. But I like this. I think it was a cool little touch, and then it kind of puts the emphasis on the team and the hard work in there. So great to see that goal, and then even better, right before half, we talked first five, last five. Just Edelman on the night, well deserved in team of the match day on the bench, but he's really proven to be, in my personal opinion, like a fan, or he should be a fan's favorite. The work ethic he's doing in that middle of the field, but he's just very clinical with that work ethic. I think sometimes we would always praise Durkin for his work ethic, more so for the miles covered, but there was a lot of instances where it was just a little untidy, we'll say, whether it was a foul, missed tackle, that type of stuff. He's been so much better so far this year, but in the past, that was more where we were looking with the work ethic. With Edelman, it's just more controlled. You don't find him overly wandering out of position too much. He finds himself, and he's smart on those balls, and he just applies good pressure, and that's what he does in this instance. New England, it looked like he may have slipped. Their midfielder turns it over, and then he slots Betcher in, who does very, very well taken footwork. A little quick touch, back heel, finds himself, and then first-time shot. Doesn't overthink it, even though it's on his left foot. Just puts it on frame with pace. Goes between Turner's hands, and we're up 2-0. And that's where I feel like maybe Betcher's best role is when when he finds himself with space, slotted through balls going through the center of the park. I think we've seen so far this year, maybe the pace when he gets the ball out wide and tries to do so much isn't necessarily there. But when he can find himself with a little bit of room and slotted balls through the middle of the park, that's where I feel like he shines. And especially, it was tough throughout the night, you would see, because they'd work it out to the wings, and Betch just really, I don't classify him as like a true big aerial threat or anything like that. So when they would work it out wide and they would try and like find somebody, that's where a lot of the cycling back through was. You could tell it's just like Betcher was the only guy in the box. No point putting a ball in the air. Nobody else with the big aerial threat, so that's when they would funnel it back out. So I think that's where, to me anyway, Betcher is his best, is when we can get these turnovers, that quick response, and he can just funnel in those slotted through balls throughout the night. And I think it was working, especially because the wing play, while it was improved, you could tell that was our main focus, was trying to get the ball on the wings, make something happen, either with Celio dribbling or a quick cross into the box. I think there's still a little bit of lacking as far as creativity goes through the middle of the park with Durkin and Edelman. I think what's great, though, is they've been good as far as shutting down opposing middle of the field. But I think as far as, and I think that's also why we see Hartle maybe trying to find himself coming more central. Hartle is very dangerous out wide. He can bring it in on his right foot and have a pop. He's accurate with his crosses. I just worry sometimes when he is out on that wing, and sometimes in games he does go missing. And I wish there was a way that we could funnel him into the center of the park, get him on the ball more. But my worry is with then you're asking more defensive responsibilities, and I feel like he's truly better when he's just more focused in that offensive third. He may do some pressing up there, but you just keep him in that attack. And right now, with the way the team is set up, it has to be him going out wide. And so what can happen, though, is when he's our best player and best distributor on the ball on the field, if we're not getting it swung to his side of the field, he can find himself missing at times. So I think it's still a little bit of lacking as far as throughout the middle of the park, but it's doing all right at this point. And so, and then Hartle, I mean, what more can we say about his goal on the night? It's so funny because I remember paying attention during warmups and the boys taking shots on goal. And one that really stood out to me on the night, as far as in almost a negative way, was Hartle. It was just one of those nights where, man, he wasn't putting anything on frame. And I just kept sitting there going, this can't be a good sign for the night. I was just like, man, he's just, even like they do like crosses in, he was missing on frame. And then the little touch in, touch out, have a quick pop on a net, he was missing on frame. Like, it wasn't he was just getting saved. It was trouble putting it on frame. And sometimes, warm-ups, take them with whatever you could be. But there are some times where even a player could be like, geez, it's not happening tonight, and almost maybe talk himself out of having a pop. So then you got to look at that, that last, great read for him. That's where he's good as well, is just that experience playing in the game, cutting off those angles. But it was such a weird decision from New England as it was to try, and I felt like there were two other passes that he could have easily made on the night. He tried to choose the way more dangerous of the three. Hartle steps in, and then just to even have the wherewithal or just the cojones to go for one like that, almost at midfield, and the way he takes it, like that ball bounces up a little bit, and the way he hits it, that's so easy to scuff one of those. Like, it's way more than just trying to boot it down on frame. You gotta get enough behind it to where it gets over the keeper's head, but you still got to keep it low enough to where it gets in the goal. I mean, talk about an amazing finish, and especially it was great on the night because Turner definitely became our boo bird on the night. He was definitely, trying stuff throughout the night. Him and Betcher got into it a little bit, and he was just, doing typical Matt Turner stuff. And, we were definitely talking a little bit trash on him pregame in the group chat about just, what he's kind of lack of what he's done. But it was evident on the night too, where he's lacking. Turner, that is, as far as the U.S. men's national team, is he's not great with the ball at his feet. And so there were many times when, we would press, ball would come back to him and he would boot it, and it rarely found a good target. It was usually something that we could pounce on. So it was great just seeing that read there. But to even think that he's out of frame and put one on, and God, to be in the south end for that goal was just so great. Like, you just see that, and you're almost like, I can't believe he's going for it when he kicks it. And it almost felt like it was just moving in slow motion. Just watching that ball just fully glide just out of the reach of him, back of the net. It was just unreal. It was so cool to see. Definitely up for, last I checked, it was definitely leading for goal of the week. It should easily win that, in my opinion. I think that's going to be a goal of the year contender. Not just for the distance and everything like that, but the skill it truly takes to do that and put it on frame it was so cool. And then it's even greater when you have a keeper trying to, play these games and mind stuff all throughout the night. And then for him to get burnt on a goal like that, it was just great. Also got to see some, M'Baku Fall finally make his debut. It was late in the game. Again, a little better with substitutions, but still later on them. Cordova had got himself some minutes. Wasn't really a big factor as far as the game goes, but I think it was just a good feeling night. Obviously you knew it was going to be, kind of heavy you knew there was going to be something for Leuven's wife throughout the night. And you just hope the boys would come out and put in a shift. And that's what I felt like they did, especially going down fairly early on the night and just not overly panicking or anything like that. But then to just kind of come from behind, stay in it. It really, I think the fans really fed off that energy as well from the players staying in it. And I felt like we were for sure the better team on the night. And I think that helped. And there's just a lot of things that I think help with that as far as, feeling that good feeling leaving there and that energy. I had a fan favorite come back into the starting lineup that people have been really shouting for, getting some minutes. You have, a come from behind and go into half leading from going down early. You have which I want to give Eric T. Randall, he tweeted us on Twitter, and it's been so long since we have one that I almost forgot we were a true Thunder bastard of a goal. And that's what that was. It was just a great, it's just a great goal. And then you have a beautiful night on the top of that. It was great to see kind of them shake things off as far as, the lack of scoring. Not that I felt like we were creating a ton of chances on the night, but it was just great to see some goals. It was great to see the new celebration as far as what's in the stadium. It was great finally getting to hear, now they're playing the Simply the Best Tina Turner post game. We haven't heard that at all this year. I don't. That's where this was going to be a question I wanted to pose to Dave. Is not to play on words, but I wonder if would you consider this a revelation or revolution? Like, is this a turning point? You look at that start of this season for City; it's been very difficult. You had games on the road, obviously, which obviously they're back on the road for the next 3, so it's going to be a true test as far as is this a change. But you figure Charlotte, they're a great team starting out at home, great performance that night. Unfortunate result coming away with the tie, but then you go, San Diego, Seattle, LAFC. That's just a tough run. So it's not like it gets any super easier. You still got NYFC, you've got Dallas and Seattle all on the road, followed by San Jose, who's been playing really well as of late. It's going to be I hope City can take this sort of performance, or at least this game, and realize, all right, we got that offer back. Let's just play free. Let's play, and I think that's what you see with introductions of Celio into the starting 11 is playing free again, going for it. And I hope that maybe DeMay can kind of build off of this is hey, we're gonna go for it. What a tough start to the year. We got our legs underneath us now. We got a tough run. It's going to be on the road, but let's truly show that we can be a good team and compete for maybe that spot in the playoffs. I still think this team is missing a few pieces. Like I said, the middle of the park. Betch, while he had a great game on the night, I still look at him as the striker that plays behind somebody as far as if you're going to be that level of a team. But it's all about getting these guys going. And especially if you're already starting to see little injuries pop up as far as Toitra was out on the night and that type of stuff, you got to get going. You can't get too far behind, even though it's super early in the season. So this road test, I think, will be an interesting one. Like I said, City will be back at it this Saturday, 6:30, a little earlier kickoff time because they'll be at NYCFC's stadium, which is City Field, which is also kind of wild and confusing. But hopefully they can go in there and just keep this momentum going. NYFC, they're starting out the year decently. Going to be, I feel like the East is a little bit weaker on the year, but they do have some good teams still in it. So let's hope that they can just keep this momentum going and just play some exciting football. Just keep the fans engaged and excited and going from there. So that's kind of what the night was. It was just an overall good night, and it was nice finally having a happy drive home. And so we're stoked on it. So next I'll move on to some South End submissions. There were a few that came in because we recorded earlier last week. There were a few that came in a little bit later, so I do want to address them, even though they were more tailored towards the previous games. But I want to always make sure we appreciate you guys writing in, so I always want to make sure we give you a shout out. We'll kick it off with our road dog, Matthew Keller. He said, "Morning, y'all. Didn't get to watch or listen to the game because of the late night West Coast matches suck for my sleep schedule. Hopefully the next 3 games, either home or in the Central Time Zone, will help alleviate that problem. Thanks for helping to try and explain the position numbers last week. I've gotten another newbie soccer question for you. Can you help clarify some of the position names? Like we have wing backs, but it seems like they play more midfield players, so it wouldn't those just be left, right midfielders? Then what's the main difference between wingers and wing backs? Are center backs also called center halves? Thanks again, y'all. Go City." So this one, again, I think it's just kind of not necessarily it's like saying a striker and a forward. I think that's interchangeable a little bit. I know there is a little bit of difference. Strikers solely stay high. Former forwards can play a little bit back, kind of like we see with like Hartle and Celio doing throughout the night. But I think as far as the difference between wingers and wings backs, it depends. To me personally, I think it depends on your formation. If you're playing with an outside back, like in a 4-4-2, and in that midfield four, there's somebody outside there, I would consider them wingers. But if you're playing a three-back center back system, kind of like we're doing now, and you have those wingers out wide, they have a lot of defensive responsibility. So while we do want them getting attack, they do have a lot of defensive responsibility of getting back, and I think that's where you start to get into the wing back role. So I think it more depends on the formation you're kind of starting to play. And that, as far as center backs and center halves, it's just your preference on that one. As far as me and I go, they're both basically in that same position. So I think it's just you find a lot of people just what they grew up on or how they grew up on what they were talking. Like as far as some people still will refer to every position as their number. Others strictly go by their names. As far as I know, that's how I always run it. But I think as far as the wingers and wingbacks one goes, I think it depends on your formation. What you are asking of those players. Is it just tracking that outside mid and keeping an eye on that? And that's really to a certain point, and that's your defensive responsibility that you lay off to that outside back when it gets to a certain point? Or are you a wing back that, hey, that outside back is your responsibility no matter how far or up and down, kind of like we're seeing now with that three back? And that's where I consider them more like wing backs, wingers, and that type of stuff. So that's what we'll go there. Next, we'll go to Alan Anani. He said, okay, I'll try to keep this one short since he gave me that long story the last time. He said, I'll try to keep this one short and under 100 words. First, why do we keep playing the same lineup? If the past two games prior didn't yield results, why stay the same course? Let's change that and start some different players, like replace Betcher with Cordova and Celio instead of Vala. How was that goal disallowed? I watched it over and over, and he was like, oh shit, I finally touched better fall over. Finally, overall, we did look better with some great connecting passes, and rebuilding takes time, so I still be hopeful and believe. And this was all kind of in with that LAFC game. Yeah, I think it was nice. We finally did see a little bit of that that rotation, like you were saying. I think that was something a lot of fans were really clamoring for, is just we're playing the same lineup, we're playing the same results, we're having late substitutions, we're not allowing these guys to get their minutes in. And so, it was good to at least see Celio make a change in the starting 11. I personally would like to also maybe see Cordova get the start in that central role. Just in the times I've watched him, they keep putting him kind of out wide, but in the little bit of time where I saw he was the central lone striker up top and then Betcher was out wide, I thought he looked a little bit better in that situation. So if you do run with like Celio and Hartle, I'd be interested to see a big body like Cordova, especially if we're playing that wing play, looking to just get crosses in, is having Cordova maybe come start and then Betch come off the bench. And I feel like that's also where Bench really, like when his work ethic on the night was just great. It just, he's always going to give you that effort, Betcher will. And when you get tired legs out there and you get somebody who just runs out with that sort of effort and also just has that little bit of like, I don't know, that get under your skin sort of type, mentality that he seems to bring to the table. I would almost like that on frustrated, tired legs rather than, straight from the get-go. Now, is Cordova better than Betcher? It's tough to say. It's kind of a, I guess matter of opinion on there, but I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see just because we did get the win. I would say more so if we didn't get a win and then we still don't make any sort of like changes to that type of aspect, then yeah, it's more than you're really starting to question the coaching. So we'll try and get into some of this week's ones. Andy Sharoni or my Sharoni said a win. The last home win was August 8th. Think of all the players who have left and personally the changes in your life. It's shocking. Yeah, I think, I forget what it was, but I think we were at like 300 and something minutes since our last goal. Like, that's just unacceptable. I know tough schedule and all that type of stuff, but you have to still find ways to get the ball in the back of the net. And then even worse, how long since our last win? I think it's shown just, the lack of confidence, where this team has kind of dropped, and hopefully, I'm not saying this is going to be like I said, a start of a revolution or a whole turn to this team season, but there is something about just getting all that first off your back, and goals, wins. You can really build off of that. I don't feel like the performances have been necessarily terrible. I think we're missing some pieces and some important stuff. So hopefully from here you'll see a little bit of a turn and a change, and we can build off of that. David Thompson said, Durkin and Edelman held it down again. Glad Durkin was able to finish. That's a good sign. Santos doesn't impress me offensively, until he puts in those dangerous crosses. Yep. Also nice to see Pompeo get a start and perform. I still didn't like the timing and lack of subs. Missed Joyner again, but Cordova played decent, and ultimately we found some nice goals and a solid win. Yeah, I mean, I think you're starting to see that building, partnership with Durkin and Edelman as far as the center of the field. I think Santos, both, you could say Santos and Vollum have both had up and down, I would say, as far as seasons goes, just so far in the early season. Performances especially. I think, when they're on, they can be a very dangerous threat, but defensively, especially when they're off, they can be a pretty big liability. But right now, who do you really put over them? You're most likely, if you put somebody in, it's going to be a defensive. I'd be really curious to see where is M'Baku fall or either fall, and when they come back, do you then move Orozco out to that wing back role for Vollum? Or, he can intertwine as far as Vollum can play on the left. So you rotate one of those guys out and bring Roscoe out as more just a sure defensive sign. I know he wasn't lighting the world on fire when he was getting on up and down the field as far as Roscoe goes. I think he's been playing great in his position now. But if you keep having these inconsistent performances, at some point you got to look to, rotate those guys out. So I think that's where they've been missing. But again, the subs, it's a question, but they are seeming to come a little bit better. Like, he did make more subs, and he got some guys in a little bit earlier, getting some timing down. So maybe it's just him also, getting more comfortable with this team and realizing, hey, some of these guys need more time as far as growing into the game and, all that type of stuff. So it's just, Joyner missing out I'm at least glad that when he does miss out on instances like this, he gets that City 2 minutes. I saw he got another good goal for City 2. So, I mean, he's still getting playing time. You just would like to see him getting a little bit of these minutes as far as the first team goes. But overall, just nice to get a nice solid win. That guy, Zach Gorski, comes in. He said, thank God for this win. Didn't want to have to go to Kansas to find a slump buster. I think I heard mentioned last episode of a live watch along. Of course, that shouldn't be for a city match, and it obviously should be for a night of Mario Kart and 007. Winner gets the right to choose the ultimate chicken wing. And when DW wins, which he will because he's the best, we can finally put this silly debate to bed. You know what? I love that idea. I do like, we've talked about, and I've said it before, I think my number one goal in this year is to somehow figure out how to do a live and watch, and then hopefully we can watch along with you guys for a city game. But I am fully down for some sort of like game night. We'll have to come up with some, like, I know we created that, like, that one image of like the Southeast trophy with the wing on top of it. Maybe we got to come up with something like that, just a bronze wing or something. I remember one time me and DH did with a buddy of his, the show Hot Ones. A friend of his was really, really in his show, like had a tattoo of it and everything. And we would go to his house around Christmas time and do like a trivia thing. But the only way your team could keep answering questions is if you ate one of those wings. And obviously they got hotter every 10, but we won one year and they gave us like, it was like a copper wing trophy. So maybe we'll need to get that, and I'll be able to put it up on the shelf when I win, of course. So I don't know what you're talking about with that DW win stuff, but yeah, I think that'd be fun, especially if we could get a live watch along with people. Or it'd be really cool if there was like some like sort of like restaurant, I'm sure there is, but if there's some sort of like gaming restaurant or something like that where we could really do like a watch party or something to where we all got to meet up, and I could, and then embarrass, him in front of everybody. I think that would be even greater. So I need an audience to let people know that he's not as great as people think he is. I'm just kidding, buddy. But yeah, we got to figure something out, and we will try and work on something to that effect. Hopefully, going into the future. I'll try and move on to some of the Reddit ones that we had come in. Dave sent them over to me, so let me pull these up real quick. We'll start off with Snarf12 said, felt like a reward game for the team after having put together some performances without results. Tough to get a break after a win, though. Feels like this team is progressing towards something and hopefully will continue the evolution. Since there will be an Italian soda shop near the stadium at 2228 Olive, what other amenities would you like to see around the stadium? Italian sodas in the summer months sound refreshing already, so trying to think of something that would be added benefit for game day experience in the service in the neighborhood. Honestly, you're right. That does sound perfect for as far as these hot summer games. I don't know if this is like just like a Southern Illinois thing, like where we're at, or and I obviously know like snow cone shops and stuff like that. But there was a place that was floating around in the Metro East area called Tropical Snow that I mean is just so good. It's just basically a snow cone, but the certain type of ice that they use, it just packs in real well. The flavoring they do is always great. I'd love to see something like that, especially when you consider the big attraction and the draw to a lot of these people going to the games is like the family atmosphere. You tailor towards the kids, and then hey, if you want, maybe they get some sort of license and they can also sell like boozy slushies and that type of stuff because I know those types of things are popular. I think there was when we went to Memphis one year, there's like a whole like bar that's just like alcoholic slushies. So I mean, especially you got to do it this year because come in the future we're going to be doing this in the winter months, and then you're looking for, as far as amenities, any hot food or hot drink at that point. So if you're going to get on the ball for this summer months coming around, they better get it. And you got to figure out as well, hosting the Summer Olympics and city hosting a couple of soccer games there might not be a bad thing to put in there as well. So but I don't know if I've ever had Italian soda, so we'll have to give that a go for sure. ITB11 says Dante Pavara has started every game, but it seems like we don't talk about it much. What are your impressions so far? I've been impressed. Honestly, I have. He's been, you're exactly right. I think you hit that on as far as, which is a good thing when it comes to a defender, I guess, is we haven't really had to talk about him much. And I think that's a good thing as far as he's not making too many mistakes. I know that one game was at San Diego where he could have stepped up and he whiffed on a ball, or he should have made the foul and he left it. But outside of that, I think he's been, one thing I really like with him is just his comfort that he seems to have on the ball. I think that shows that little bit of midfield experience that he has in tight situations, but he just seems to be a reliable, when playing the ball towards his feet. He seems very smart with his tackles when he is aggressive. So I think you're right on that. I think he's been maybe underrated as far as just the other things that have been going on with the city. And maybe that's why he hasn't been talked about as much is, when you're not scoring goals, your attention goes there. And, when you're losing, it seems like you're giving up goals. And so maybe I feel like he and Edelman have been definitely positives, I'll say, as far as the signings go this year. Mbaku Fall still kind of up in the air as far as just because we haven't seen him on what he could be, that type of stuff. Cordova, as well. I don't really look at him as yet anyway as like a long-term signing. So it's tough to really like get almost too attached to him or really too focused in on what he's been doing. But yeah, I've been liking what I've been seeing from Povara so far. Juiceman23 says, am I crazy for thinking that Mbaku Fall should be starting by now? By what front office has said previously he's supposed to be a starting center back and he hasn't played at all, minus a few minutes in the past game. Should we be concerned at this point? I've been asking the same question. I keep thinking, is it a fitness issue? But then he plays, starts, I think he started the past two City 2 games. So it is kind of this, and City even highlighted that he made his debut in this last game. But it's just kind of like, is this what coach is seeing in the training? And remember, he said it in the past, like I put a lot of emphasis on like what I see in training. So is there something that's not happening in training? Is he just liking the three center backing pairing right now of Baumgartel, Povar, and Orozco, and he doesn't want to change it? I'm right there with you. I always get a little bit, well, what was that for when you make a big signing and you don't make other signings in areas that we feel like we need. Like it was really highlighted we needed a striker in the offseason. You don't make one of those, but he was really highlighted as a big signing for us, and he just hasn't really featured as much. Is it a fitness thing? Is it a training thing? Is it he puts those other guys ahead of him? I don't know. And so I'm kind of wondering the same thing. I would like to think that here soon he's going to have to get some sort of rotation in with him in there. And then I just want to see a good, because unfortunately I haven't got to see much City 2 this year just because work's been crazy and I always work on Sundays when they play. I want to see him. I want to see what is he like. It's always tough when you get these new signings. All you ever see is their highlight film. So I want to see what is he like in front of me in these game situations. Is he going to be out there and we're going to be like, oh, there's a reason he's been not getting this play time? Or is there also going to be like, how has this guy not been in our starting lineup this whole time? Was it fitness? And then that makes, a little bit of comfort. But I always am, a little bit like, well, why would we make such a big signing or make a signing if it wasn't actually in our plans? So then you, again, ask those questions. Was this a front office decision or was this a coaching decision? And, you get back into all that. So hopefully we start seeing a little bit more of him and we can see what he brings to the table. Medium_implement 7500. Who do we have to talk to get some Coors Light offered in the South End? I didn't realize they didn't offer Coors Light in the South End. I've never really gone for Coors Light as far as that, so I didn't know. But yeah, you need some silver bullets running around all throughout the stadium. Now, I follow that question. Do they offer them in other parts of the stadium, just not in the South End? Because that would be really weird. If it's not in the stadium at all, it obviously makes sense not being a Bud product. But, I don't know. I guess I've never noticed. I guess I'll have to pay attention. I do think I need to get back on my I did it this game, and it seemed to work. So I'll have to get back on my Kona Big Wave pregame beer selection, at least one, and get back on that. And, I mean, if it works, worst case scenario is I have to start every night with a Kona Big Wave. So I guess I'm going to have to get back on it. They call me Sly Fox is back. Said felt like the game was getting away from us at the start on Saturday, but what a Uno reverse we pulled on New England, huh? Great goals up and down, but Betcher's was art in motion, and Hartle still might be the greatest goal in City's history a decade from now. We've got another schedule gauntlet to run over the next 2 months, but at least there's some hope after that performance. If the team keeps progressing and we keep pick up a boot this summer, we might be asking ourselves Jim Mora's favorite question. I don't know what Jim Mora's favorite question is, so I don't know what we'll be asking. But yeah, it's the thing of any part of the season. There's just never going to be an easy part of the season. But right now, it's you maybe get a relief as far as the talent and the threat level of these teams, but then you're still having to deal with being on the road that long, and that's just we found, especially in this league, that road, especially if you look at the betting lines and that type of stuff, road, home, it does matter. And especially if you can keep that energy that we've been experiencing so far as City Park goes, I think it's a tough gauntlet. But hopefully out of the 3 games, give me 4 at least. Give me a win in there somewhere. I'll take a draw on the road. We've said that before, but you got to give me a win, at least one win in there somewhere. And I definitely think this team can do it. It's just going to be, can we put the ball in the back of the net? I think that's the main focus right now. As our old friend Dave Spurrier used to say, we need a goal scorer. We just need goals. I don't care who the scorer is. Just give me some goals. And hopefully if we can do some of the things that we saw on the night, not putting balls in with pace in dangerous areas, not over complicating and putting things on frame first time. I think this team can do it. They just have to do it. So we'll go to Discord for a couple. We've got Matt Kahn 461 that said, after the Hartle banger this weekend, what are the top 4 goals City has scored? I think it was Hartle this weekend, Edu Leuven's free kick, Klaus Austin first game winner, Nilsson's bike. Our friend John Love said the Leuven free kick of Vancouver year 1. I'd say the Perez goal against Vancouver year 1. Fendo Phil says Hartles versus New England 2006. Then Leuven versus Houston 2025. Leuven versus Vancouver 2023. And then Durkin against Miami in 2025. Um, let's see. Yeah, man, I'd have to go back and like look at some of the goals to come up with the top four. As far as my favorite goal, man, that Leuven one against Houston was so difficult and so well taken. You had a Nielsen bike in there, a couple of Klaus's goals against Kansas City. Remember Nico had a couple good ones. Maybe that's what I'll try and compose as far as getting that ready for next episode is maybe like top. I'll give you top three goals that I best. We'll say best goals because you can't say favorite goals. You got to say best goals because I do think there's a big difference in there. No Goal Patrol came in. First off, I want to shout out No Goal Patrol. First off, for always being great supporter groups, but it's slowly becoming a fan favorite. And I noticed this in the first game, but it needs to get this attention. The tiny flag, the hand flag, the towel, whatever you want to call it, on the tall pole right off that, what is that, the west end, just floating over there by itself is just brilliant. It's my favorite thing to look at all the time, like just seeing such a long pole, such a tiny, and I'm glad it's starting to get a little bit of notoriety on the socials because it's just so, you got all these huge flags and everything waving kind of over, more towards the east half, and then just over there is just that solo long pole. So if you are back at the stadium for the next home games, hopefully they still have it there. Check that out because it's just something that like the game could be going bad and you'll just look over and just kind of give a little one of those little laughs. So that's great. But they came in and said peanut butter, crunchy or creamy. I don't mind either. I'll put that out there now. I don't mind either. I think the difference with it, in my opinion, is if you're gonna go crunchy, you can only do it in a PBJ. Outside of that, I think it gets a little off. Too many factors. I think where crunchy just finds its lane is a PBJ, whereas creamy peanut butter is where, for me anyway, you can branch out to different sandwiches or add it to different things, apples, whatever else. That's where I think. So that's where I would maybe give the edge to creamy as far as like it's just versatility as far as that goes, more so than anything else. But I don't mind personally either. But I definitely feel like creamy has to be the people, like more people's favorite, more so than I don't know anybody personally that prefers crunchy. I think that's kind of like a rarity in there. So I'm gonna go with creamy on that one. So I'm curious to see what everybody else said. I'm sure that guy Gorski or Cadlick, one of those two, will come in next week and tell me that I can't believe that you don't like crunchy peanut butter over whatever. So I'm sure I'll get stick for that as always. We'll finish up tonight with that Cadlick's combat as far as Ryan Cadlick coming in. He said, happy sode. Every sode is a happy sode when the double MCB is on the mic. Well, hate to break. I guess this episode just went down a little bit more since he's not on the mic. But he said this episode's topic is if you had to eliminate a city sports team in all its history. All these cities have multiple sports franchises, random order per chat GBT. Oh, man. So we've got Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Dallas, Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, and New York City. I'll probably do the same topic next week. Ooh. I don't know if you want me. I feel like this is one that, the double MCB definitely has to be on because I'm sure he has gripes with every single one of these cities in some form or fashion. Because there's just so much to, you may not mind a certain sport within that city, but then there's another one that you just can't like despise. And then the question I would have maybe to follow up, so when we do have double MCB on for this one, is when we eliminate them, are we eliminating to where the winner is the one that we absolutely want gone forever? Or is when we eliminate them, is the one that's left the one that we don't mind? You know what I'm saying? So like, let's just say if like Los Angeles wins, is it because, are we voting because that's the one we don't mind the most? Or when we're choosing between Chicago and New York City, if I'm choosing Chicago, is it because I hate them more than I would like New York City? Does that make sense, Cadlick? So maybe I'll just save that one for now. just because I do feel like this is one that he would definitely love to get on. And then also, so I know, how are we voting on this? Like, as far as like, if we had to eliminate a sports team, like, am I eliminating them here, and then the last one is the one we don't mind the most, or is the one that makes it to the end the one we hate the least or the most, and that's gone forever? I think that's the way he's meaning it, but we'll get clarification on that. So thank you all so much for the South End submissions that you've sent in. Again, I truly do appreciate it. It truly helped me out on this episode as far as getting through the episode. They're always great to read. I love all the seeing other people interact with other people's submissions as well. I appreciate also you guys just sending them all the time in and not just waiting for the post. But again, if I do miss them or they come in a little bit later, I will try and make sure and always screen grab them so I can get them in on the next episode, even if they're a little late. So thank you for sending those in. Again, keep sending them in and keep following us on all our socials. On Instagram, we're South End Supporters. Our Twitter and our Reddit is _SES_podcast STL. You can also send them in on our Facebook page and as well as our YouTube, and keep up with all things South End Supporters. So for myself, Eric Cole, for the Monday Morning Center back, Dave Wyckoff, who's out tonight, you've been listening to South End Supporters. And until next week, let's go City.